I also think that Moses, I mean, if you ask yourself what it is that Moses really thought the gift was about, I mean, we tend to talk about gifts and markets, or gifts and commodities, as if they were the opposites of each other. But for most, what was important in looking at the place of the archaic gift in modern capitalist societies was it revealed that our economies are in fact a site where many different institutional patterns coexist, and that for example, that the welfare state is based on some principles which are analogous to those of the gift. Some of our principal contracts, like wages and rent, partake of a more complex institutional and ideological provenance than a simple description of capitalism or the market economy would suggest. And so it seems to me that the main thing that Moses was trying to say in this essay, I should say also that Moses at this time, you may have wondered why he wrote so little. I mean, that's because his real métier was as a political journalist. I mean, there is a collection of his political writings that was published a decade ago, which is 700 pages, and 2/3 of those political writings were produced in the period 1920 to 25, when Moses was also writing The Gift. So, and many of these political writings were about the Bolshevik Revolution and its aftermath, and whether we should be in favor of or against, and for what reason the political and economic solution was chosen there. And I think that what he was he was arguing against a sort of eschatological extreme in right and left ideology, which says that the economy consists of different periods, stages, and from time to time the world moves from one stage to the other. That we live in a capitalist society which replaced a feudal society, and this capitalist society will be replaced by a future communist or socialist society. That idea that the world consists of a series of stages in which one dominant form is replaced by another, this is the principal object of his essay, The Gift. He's trying to say that all the human possibilities for organizing economy coexist in different proportion and with different emphasis. And instead of trying to come up with an alternative to a caricature of capitalist economy, we should be studying more closely what it is that people actually do now, and thinking about ways of reorganizing them and giving them a new direction and emphasis, but not, as it were, imposing on people a model of economy that is introduced by some revolutionary force, but somehow giving vent to human interests in new ways and with new emphasis and combination. And that, it seems to me, if we take that line from Moses, and I think also one can take a similar line from Polanyi, perhaps less from his Great Transformation, which is the historical work, and more the writings that he made after the war, in which he talked about the different modes of integration of economy, reciprocity, redistribution, market, and so on. Polanyi too was essentially arguing that society embraces several different kinds of institutional mechanisms at the same time, that the market may be given unnecessary dominance, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have its uses in other contexts. And I think Polanyi, more than anyone, was arguing for the importance of social solidarity in the reconstruction of an economy that has been devastated by an over-reliance on market or capital accumulation. In other words, he's saying that it's not just a question of the government pumping money in through taxation or giveaways or whatever. It is a question of people being mobilized through their own associations and in various ways to do something about the problems that we face as a society. And so from Polanyi and Mauss, I have taken what I would, I mean, I live now in Paris and I've been associated for some time with French economic sociologists of the left, and there is, I think, a growing consensus in that area that we now have a possibility to consider the various institutional possibilities that arise from what people have been doing already, and that this should be linked somehow to the larger questions which perhaps in the past we have tended to shrink from. I mean, anthropologists faced with economists' accounts of the world have said these are too abstract, they're too impersonal. I mean, they're epitomized by the graphs that people use to describe them. What we can do as sociologists and anthropologists is to inject some notion of the ideas and actions that living people bring to these processes. So that anthropologists and sociologists have been very good, I think, in the last few decades in showing how economic practice is can often be understood at the personal and low-level social level. But I think that what we haven't done effectively is to take these human-centered, grounded observations and interpretations and make them relevant to the large questions that we're now confronting about whether world economy as a whole is heading over the cliff, and if it is or it isn't, what we should be doing about it. And I think that that's the challenge that we face as anthropologists today, is that we should not repudiate what it is that we already know. We know a lot, and we have methods which are well suited to addressing some of the problems that have now become much more urgent in society. And you know, it does leave certain questions that I can't answer about how far we need to develop a historical perspective on these questions, and if so, how, and also whether, as a discipline, we have lost sight of the engagement with the movement of humanity as a whole in the world, and how we might rediscover that. And for my purposes, I find the revisiting of 18th and 19th century anthropology a suitable corrective to the more myopic and narrowly circumscribed anthropology, certainly of the late 20th century. But I don't really understand that, and I would be glad if we could have a discussion about what kinds of questions and problems might arise if we sought to draw on our history to devise more appropriate methods for engaging with the world as we now confront it.